Trade talks are escalating, with insiders reporting a surprising blockbuster trade proposal involving one of Vancouver's biggest superstars, which could turn out disastrous for the Canucks if it comes to fruition. We're going to be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest. So first, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon. If you guys are part of the 73% nearly that aren't subscribed, we're on the road to 10,000 subscribers right now. So if you want to stay up to date on all the Canucks content, make sure to hit that button and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of the updates when they drop. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Blockbuster trade rumblings. So we see here in a tweet from RG Media via Jim Berringer saying he's available for trade, talking about New York Islanders defenseman Noah Dobson being available on the NHL trade market, while Lou Lamoriello seems keen to retain Brock Nelson. And you guys are probably wondering, why are we covering this? This is about the New York Islanders, where they're saying that that is a piece that they are willing to part with in order to get the scoring presence that they've wanted for seasons. Here's where we get into where the Canucks come into play, where there was an earlier report in January from Stefan Rosner saying that Dobson is in the final year of a 3-year extension that pays him $4 million a season. He's still a restricted free agent when his contract expires. However, as it has been reported by himself, the Islanders have an interest in Vancouver's Elias Pettersson, so the young defenseman could be part of a package to get him. And the quote from Rosner saying it would not just be Dobson in the deal. There would have to be more money in terms of players going back to Vancouver for the $11.6 million to balance out. The Canucks might have to retain the deal too. And that last bit right there, that is the gut punch of where this could be a complete disaster for the Vancouver Canucks, because everyone's been talking about how the big problem with Elias Pettersson is the contract size. Everyone wants him out of there just so they can clear up the cap space and not have to pay it so much. So if you ship him out, but you're in a situation where you're still having to foot the bill for that contract, you're pigeonholing yourself into an even deeper hole than you were, because then you bring in a defenseman who's getting paid $4 million a year, who's going to want more than that on his next contract when it expires in the next season. And then you're also dealing with somebody who is on LTIR currently. So we're going to talk into that in a second, but you're also posing a risk there where you're getting a guy that isn't even going to be ready to go right away, when you're giving up one of your superstars, when you've already given up one of your key 4 players in JT Miller. I know there was the whole feud and everything like that, but putting all that aside, just looking at it on an objective standpoint, the Canucks gave up one of their superstars, one of their 4 superstars, one of the pillars of this team, and now they're ready. Now there's a seemingly report where they could be moving on from another one of them and still having to pay the bill on that 11.6. I don't see any world where this would be something that the Vancouver Canucks should consider if they are having to keep that contract on their payroll. If they're able to free it up, okay, see what you can get, maybe hear him out, but I still think you retain Pettersson, you build around him and Quinn Hughes for the future of this team. And then as well, if you're having to retain all of Pettersson's contract, then how are you going to go out and make these free agency signings that you need to in the offseason, or these trades that you still want to make to bolster down this team so that we can go on a run in these playoffs? Especially if we don't have Pettersson. I know people will say what but they want us about Pettersson in the playoffs and what he's done recently, but I think if we're able to get these better pieces around him, like we've been seeing happen more and more. I know last game he didn't have any shots on net. People are going to talk about that. They were talking about it in last video, but if this team can get on a roll going and Pettersson can get back to that stride that he was in with the right pieces around him and him finding that within himself, I think there's even more reason why you need to keep him, because then he's proving his point right there that it was just the noise. He was able to block it out and he was able to bounce back. If it's a situation where he can't bounce back by the end of the year, then you're in a situation where maybe you move on from him. But then, knowing the Canucks' luck, he's going to go out. They're going to ship him out to the Islanders or another team, and they're going to win a Stanley Cup in the next 2 years or so, just because that seems to be what happens when you move on from superstars. They make you pay the price for it when they go to a new team, and they light up the scoreboard. But the thing here that we got to look at too is that Dobson has struggled to take the necessary defensive steps to become a true number 1 defenseman, and this season's offense hasn't come close to the 70-point output that we saw from Dobson last year. And looking at his stats, he had a very impressive season last year, playing 79 games, 10 goals, 60 assists for 70 points with a plus 12 rating. And the seasons before that, while they weren't as flashy on the score sheet, the health was the big thing. 80 games, 78 games, 79 games in the past 3 seasons, 46 in this season, not too great. And unfortunately, he is currently on the LTIR list after sustaining a lower body injury on January 4th. Islanders general manager Lou Lamoriello said he could return to the ice during the later part of the upcoming 2-week break, but there is no timetable for when he will be game ready. So taking all that into account, taking the stats into account, taking the contract into account with the $4 million cap hit, I know the Canucks are going to have some leeway as far as what they can work with because of the salary cap increasing next year as well, and with the potential moves that they still have to make on the table. But with some signings still left to be made, and as well as some trades that they still want to make, and taking on a guy where, yeah, you can put that in the LTIR pool, but for how long before he's ready to come back? Then he comes back. Now that LTIR pool money has to go somewhere. It can't just stay there. It has to move back into the regular salary cap at that point, which will pigeonhole the Canucks even further. I'm not saying that Dobson isn't capable of being great on this Canucks team. I think he would fit in fairly well and would give this defense the jump that they need because he can produce. He's on the right side. There's a lot of upside with him there. The only thing I have that's a concern is, yes, he's currently on LTIR. So if they were to make this trade happen tomorrow, let's say, you're already at a loss there because Pettersson's going to be ready to go for the Islanders right away, and Dobson we're still going to have to wait for probably until after the Four Nations face-off. So right there, that's already pigeonholing yourself. Then you have that $4 million contract where, especially if the Canucks have to take on the 11.6, that's going to suck even worse because that's almost $15 million now that you're paying for almost one guy with one guy already gone. So that's a very expensive $4 million contract, and probably even more than that because if Dobson does perform well for the Canucks, I know we're saying as if this is already a done deal, but this is just saying in hypotheticals here. If Dobson does come to the Canucks and he's able to perform well, then you have an even bigger price tag that he warrants, or you lose him in free agency. So if one of those two things happen, it's a kind of a catch-22 or a lose-lose actually, really, because there's no benefit from it other than, yeah, you get some production from a defenseman, but is he a top 4 guy? He hasn't been able to make that jump entirely other than last season. Then you have the risk of, okay, now we have the contract as well for that, where if we can't afford to sign him in the offseason because we're still footing the bill for Elias Pettersson and because of the other signings we make, then you risk losing him to walk away from the team for nothing, and you lost one of your superstars as a result for what, a few month rental just to try and make a late season cup run. I know a lot of Canucks fans would say if it gets us a cup, I don't care, but the reality is I don't think that's a difference maker that's going to get us a cup. I don't think that's a trade that puts us over the top and makes us a scary team. I was thinking about it last night when I was watching the game against a team that is as bad as the San Jose Sharks. We didn't look scary. We didn't look like a playoff team. Yeah, we got the win. We got the overtime win. We got 2 points out of it. And they don't ask how, they ask how many. And any given game on the ice can go either way. However, this is not a Vancouver Canucks team. Even last year, people can say what they want about last year, how great of a season it was. But we were not a team that inspired fear. That's just a basic reality situation. We're not a team that teams are scared of. People come into us and they think, okay, we have an easy game. It's a lot like some underdog teams that we see in other sports and just in the NHL alone, where teams get counted out and they can catch them off guard. However, teams don't take the Canucks very seriously, and it shows with how these teams are playing us, where a bad team, they're going to walk all over us, and a good team, they might make it close, but it's not going to look like it's close. They're going to kind of toy with us, and it's been the case for a few games this season where Vancouver has just been within reach of beating a really good team, but when they think they're there, that's when the really good team says, all right, just when you thought you had us close, we're just going to turn it on you, and we're just going to light up the scoreboard. We've seen that happen in a few games where the Canucks were in it for the first and second period, and then the levees broke in the third period, and all hell broke loose. So that's some of the things that Canucks have to avoid. And I know people will say, Pettersson doesn't inspire fear. Why should teams be scared of him? That's the Pettersson now. Look at Prime Petey. Prime Petey, teams were scared of him. Goalies were scared of him. Defenses were scared of him. But right now, it's not the case. But if Petey can make something switch where he's able to click, and this team can also get something going where they are able to make some other moves that don't involve Petey, they can get something clicking, and we're going to be able to see that old Petey come back, and teams can finally, hopefully, be scared of us. I know with Marcus Pettersson arriving in Filip Hronek, those guys have been really great additions, as well as Drew O'Connor. That's going to be a little bit of a step in the right direction towards teams maybe taking us a little bit more seriously. But in my opinion, I think we still have a way to go. But what do you guys think on all this? Do you make this move of Dobson for Pettersson, especially if Vancouver is footing the bill? Or do you just pass on it entirely and wait for the next offer? Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments. That's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is comment of the day. It's been a while, but we've had a lot of news to get into in the last bit. And this comment's coming from Doc saying the next big required extension needs to be Kevin Lankinen, then Boeser, then O'Connor, and Suter. And I would definitely agree with this. I think last night's game, I was a little bit high on recency bias because O'Connor did get that game-winning goal. But especially considering Thatcher Demko's health concerns and his on and off fluctuation with being a starting goalie and being on the injured list, that is something where they need to address it. And Kevin Lankinen, at the rate that they have him right now with the contract he has. I know it's going to warrant an even bigger price tag after this season, but they have him on a really good deal. They already got the chemistry going for him, so they might be able to get him to take a bit more of a cap-friendly deal in that aspect because of already being in Vancouver. But then you have the other caveat of, hey, Thatcher Demko, his health is up and down. It's 50-50 sometimes. So we need someone reliable that can hop between the pipes. Artur Shilovs, we thought that was the future. Early in the season, proved that wasn't the case, and Kevin Lankinen came in and stole that job like it was nothing. So now Kevin Lankinen is in a position where he could be a starter anywhere else and take that money, or he could be a 1B goalie for the Canucks where, yeah, you're not going to be the 1A starter, but you're going to get a lot more starts than most backup goalies would in this NHL, and that's why I think it's a very appealing choice for Kevin Lankinen to stay in Vancouver, and I definitely agree you go get Boeser after that, and I think that's what the Canucks are hopefully trying to plan to do. But what do you guys think of all this down in the comments? Love to hear what you guys have to say. We appreciate reading all you guys' comments. Love all the feedback. But with that, I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.